evening, everyone. We are back again with another program that is geared at informing and motivating people to do something different. And tonight we are talking about the importance of multiplicity of languages. In this modern era, it is so vital that people are able to speak more than their mother tongue. And even during the COVID-19 period, the downtime that a lot of us had, some people tried to learn a new language. And for me, I speak English, that's my mother tongue. I speak Creole very fluently. And I speak bits and pieces of French and Spanish. But tonight we have four panelists. We have Mr. Ivan Francis from St. Kitts. He lives in Anguilla and he's teaching French and Spanish. We have Miss Miranda Santos. Miranda is from the Dominican Republic. She migrated to Anguilla and she will explain how she learned English. And we have Mrs. Jeanette Guzman, who is also from the Dominican Republic, and she as well migrated here and learned English. Then we have Lucette, who's in Guadeloupe. She will join us in a few minutes, but she also, her mother tongue is French, but she speaks Spanish and English fluently, and she will tell you, explain to you how she came about that. And so, Mr. Francis, why do you think it's important that we learn multiple languages, especially for young people? And well, the program is not only for young people. The program is for everybody. Mainly, well, everybody, for young people and even for older people who feel that it is too late to learn a foreign language. That's just a myth as far as I am aware, or I am concerned. So explain to us, Mr. Francis, why you think it's important.
Yeah, we live in a time when communication is well, it has always been extremely important, and some self-expression, no matter where we go, is capital to us. I mean, the most important thing we want to do, we need to do when we go anywhere, when we travel, even when we're at home, is to be able to express ourselves. And so being able to do that wherever you are on the globe, it's so important because it makes the difference between hunger and satisfaction of the feelings that we have. It makes it if we are searching for a mate, I mean, that goes without saying. When we cross the frontiers, we should be able to express ourselves in the language of the country where we're going. So it doesn't matter where we are, the learning of a foreign language, and again, we have foreign language speakers come to our shows and they try to interact with us, but sometimes we are the ones who are at a loss. So for our own sake and for the sake of others, I say we need to learn different languages.
So Jeanette, en el mundo hay mucha persona, gentes, hay mucha gentes que habla español.
Sí.
¿Por qué?
Porque español es una lengua muy hermosa y fácil de aprender.
Sí.
Mr. Francis, is it easy?
Oh, yes, yes.
Es fácil de aprender.
Sí, yo aprendiendo ahora en la computadora.
Tiene que ir en clase.
Tiene que ir a clases.
Right. So you, Jeanette, you were born in the Dominican Republic. Tell us a bit about yourself and your language journey.
I migrated to Anguilla when I was 13 years old. It was quite difficult. I did not want to be here because I used to cry. I didn't want to go to school. Because unlike now that we have the Spanish community has grown, it was much lesser back then. We're talking about 20 something years ago, maybe less, no adding up. But Now it's easier, but back then we didn't have Spanish channels. We didn't have a lot of the things that people have access to. So learning the language was to me quite easy because I was fully exposed to everything that was English. Everything on TV was in English. Everywhere I turned were persons who spoke English. So I think that helped me a lot, and I would often encourage persons to try to expose themselves fully, because I believe that when we are babies, we don't know what we are being told. And by repetition, we learn what each thing is. So I think that with repetition, you learn languages. You just have to stick to it. Back then, I learned by listening to English, pure English. And by now, what I normally do would be to try to learn a different word and try to incorporate it and so on.
And your English is impeccable. When I first met you, I did not know that you were Spanish because there was no hint of an accent. But you speak English so very well. And
I have a passion for languages. I love languages to the extent that I would pick up an accent easily. Anyone I would speak to, I would pick up their accent easily and adapt it. And I would often tell persons, don't be offended. I don't know how it happens. It just happens.
and Miranda is also
Academia.
from the Dominican Republic, and Miranda is a teacher. She teaches in the evenings. She teaches a bit of English to her Spanish compatriots. I find Miranda to be very, very enthusiastic about languages because she and I, we go back a bit. We also shared a French class together. So Miranda, tell us a bit about your English journey.
Well, for me, has been hard in the matter of at the beginning when I came first to Anguilla, I noticed that the language, original language in this island is English. And my problem was that at that time, I was not able to speak English. So when I faced that situation, I start searching people, investigating, and find out how to learn this language because I noticed how important it is to be communicated in this island. And I say, what am I gonna do now? So something I have to do, and I have to recall something that a person in front of me right now was my first teacher. Who is it? Jeanette.
Oh, Gina, I didn't realize
Jeanette,
Oh,
you were
yes,
a teacher.
lovely.
Yes.
yes. Jeanette was my first teacher in this island. And for any reason that I don't remember exactly, that it's not because she is old is me, but the situation is there's something, something happened at the time that we had to stop the class for, I don't remember what reason. And then I started to find out who uh, who at that time is able to teach me. I went to a teacher. I don't remember. No, the name is teacher Stella. I don't know if one of you know her. Teacher Stella. After that, I went by teacher Sandra in Learning Center in North Hill.
Not
Yes, and I learned a little, but I try to encourage. I try to do my best. I try to be reading, listen to music, listen to the radio, and
Yes, I help
you
a lot.
know different tools that I used at that time to help myself. So when I meet a bunch of people coming from Santo Domingo in the same situation that I faith here at the beginning. I get interest, a special interest to teach to all those people. Because I tell you, maybe my English is not good. Maybe I am no the best speaker English, but I try to be communicated. That is my concern, to be communicated. And my passion is languages, not only English, because I have a teacher right there. I have two teachers there, French and English. Teacher Francis, yes.
Oui, c'est moi.
Yes, yes, we're
Oui.
in family now. So this is my story, and I'm very, very interested in the encourage different languages, not only English, not only Spanish, not only French. If we get the opportunity to expand our communication, learning different languages, it should be wonderful for me.
And Mr. Francis, Monsieur
Oui,
Francis, tu es
oui.
professeur de français pour plusieurs années. Pourquoi?
Ben, j'aime les langues aussi, hein. J'aime les langues.
Français, c'est magnifique.
Français, surtout le français, surtout le français. C'est ma passion, c'est ma vie, c'est mon amour. You know, I just love languages. When I started learning languages in first form way back, that was so long ago, you know, in Sandy Point High School. I just, you know, I noticed that I just fell in love with the language. The sounds, you know, it sounded so nice
Yeah.
and so smooth. And I realized that, you know, we got along very well. And before I knew it, I was, you know, basically at the head of the class, and everything was, you know, going so well between us. And then the same thing when I started Spanish, you know, it just went well. And I realized, say, fellow, you have a knack for languages, and you need to just focus on the languages. I mean, not forgetting everything else, but you need to give these two special attention. So what I did, it wasn't so much a matter of creating a strategy, but when I look back at it, that's what it was. But for me, it was just fun. So the things that I realized I could say in English, especially if I wanted to tell somebody something special, you know, whether positive or negative, I would say it in English and I would learn to say it in French and say it to myself first and, you know, make sure it sounded nice to me. I mean, sounded kind of correct. So if it was something bad, I'll say it to myself first, like tu es si bête, you know, or if it was something nice, you know, tu sais que je t'aime, you know. So I tried as much as possible to mimic all the accents that, you know, and you know, it just came, and I realized that it worked very well for me. And sometimes people will hear me speak, who are you speaking to? Speaking to myself. Because I realized that, you know, I speak to myself, I responded, and it sometimes we used to end up just between me and myself, having a long conversation. And everybody would think I was speaking to somebody else, but the back and forth, because I mean, you don't always need somebody else to speak to when you have yourself
Well,
and when you know what you want to do.
except when you need somebody to correct you, because when you speak a language badly, of course you must make mistakes if you're going to learn. But yes, I understand what you're saying. That you have to talk to yourself in the mirror when nobody's around. Jeanette is smiling because everybody who has learned a foreign language will know you have to do that. You must do that. I don't know.
You have to. You have to.
You have to.
Now it's it is so much bigger than just learning a language. I found that when you learn another language, you also are immersing yourself into the culture of that language,
Yes. Yes,
into
indeed.
the way of life of the people, the history.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned a lot about the Spanish culture since I have started learning Spanish. And it has opened me up in a way that I'd never seen before. I didn't imagine that could have happened. So can you explain a little more about the cross-cultural aspect of learning a new language?
More than learning the culture also makes you helps you understand even the way persons act to certain things through their culture, you know. um, that's what I feel is more than knowing what the culture is, but also how they behave to certain, how they react to certain actions based on their culture. And you can only know that when you interact, when you hear their feelings, when you're able to connect with by their language. That's the only way you would know.
Yes, and so many things are important. Etiquette of a culture, you learn that through the language. Because certain things you
Mm-hmm.
say in English, you wouldn't dare say that to somebody, for example, in French, because they would look at that as disrespect. But you
Yes.
have to learn how to address people
Mm-hmm.
and what to say, what not to say. And even the cuisine. I remember when we were doing our Spanish, the lecturer asked us to select a Latin American country that we would be interested in and study the history of the country. And there were about 13 or 14 of us in the class, and no two people chose the same country. The lecturer never assigned the countries to us, yet still, no two people chose the same country. I chose Cuba, and I got into the history of Cuba, and I ended up in Che Guevara, and I ended up in the whole history of and that was so fascinating. And then I end up listening to all of these songs and then all of these Latins, a whole world out there of gospel musicians. And I started to listen to gospel music in Spanish, and I realized that, my God, there is a whole different world out there that we're not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure that some of you would have had some of that experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's really an eye opener, especially when if you go down the avenue of music. It's really something special. I remember in when I was in third form, I got the opportunity to go to Guadeloupe, as a part of a national a group of exchange students. And the music that we were hearing in Guadeloupe, well, at the time with my, little knowledge of French, I thought it was French, which was really Creole. But the music had me. The music, it pulled me. And in my with my little French, whatever the French was, I picked up. I thought, that was it. But then, to return in 1985, where and we're talking about the culture, and so, you know, let's say I was 100% sold, 100% immersed, of course, because I'm hearing it all around on the buses. You hear it. We went to the nightclubs, parties.
Mr. Francis, you went to nightclubs? Pastor
Yes.
Francis, you went to a nightclub?
No, and Pastor Francis didn't go. My mother's son went. so, and it did something to those of us who were there, because what we didn't get through the language itself, we got through the culture, and it brought us so much closer. And some of us, I mean, we remained friends for a very long time. And I could say, man, he's my brother, because we've known each other so long. And the music, we went to concerts, went to parties, we sat down together, we listened to music, and we discussed the music, we discussed the artists, musicians, and everything. And we enjoyed the food, of course, because, the French Caribbean cuisine is something, different to ours. And it was just lovely. It was just lovely. And all that came alive, you know, when we had the same common language between us. And that made that, I mean, the music, the food made you want to communicate. And, you know, at the age of 19, 18, you're looking at the you know, the girls and, you know, so, you know, the attraction was there. So how could you express yourself without the language? And learning the songs. And so, of course, we try to sing to each other. And it gives language so much life when we add the culture to it, when there's a cultural aspect to it.
And
Uh,
and
we can't divorce them.
right, the barriers are certainly broken because it is so much easier to communicate with locals when you can reach them on the level by
Mhm.
speaking their own language, as opposed to relying on a translator or somebody telling you what is being said. So
Mhm.
you break
Right.
the barriers quicker, and as Pastor Francis said, you are able to form friendships. And I'm
Mhm.
sure many people who've been in language groups, who've traveled, who spent time, perhaps, you know, when they have the school exchanges during the Easter holidays, they would assign students to certain families. These
Mhm.
people would have formed the lifelong friendships.
Mhm.
Right. Exactly. But if I may, pick on Miranda a bit because she went to France and you know, with a little bit of French. So if Miranda
Yes.
could tell us a bit about her experience, you know,
Yes.
communicating with the French folks.
I noticed that languages open doors in all over the world. That is the thing that I would like that one day my dream comes true to Anguilla to implement the specific school where you can come and learn different languages. This is my position. That's why when Idenia told me about this meeting, I was very interested. I say, no, it's something really, really important for all of us. So if you going right now, believe me or not, because the time was too short in relation to the about maybe less than 2 months. I was I was learning French before I traveled. I traveled to France, and the uh, the French that teacher Francis taught me at that time was enough to be communicated when I get France, when I get to the airport, when I have to learn where I have to buy the ticket to go somewhere, where I can buy whatever thing that I need when the moment that I need to go to the bathroom, I say, oh, now I know how to say, where are the bathroom? So it was just wonderful for me when I was able at that time to speak. Maybe somebody hear me say, oh, maybe she knows French. No, the the uh, exposed that I made at that time, the inquiries that I be communicated, led me to say whatever they need to understand, maybe not good, but they understood perfectly all what I could say in French when I was there.
Right. And it is so important not to be self-conscious, because if you have to try to get everything right, I am telling you, you will never learn to speak a language, a foreign language.
Yes.
Because you really
Yes.
can make, there's this guy at church, Miranda, in hell. In hell, I've not inhaled from since I'm in Angola. And every Sunday, in hell would come up to me after church and just speak to me in Spanish. and I'm saying to Inhale, Inhale, I don't understand what you're saying. And I have to call somebody close by. And I've had to call somebody close by to explain what Inhale is saying. I said, Inhale, I'm going to learn Spanish. Give me 6 months, I will learn Spanish, and then I will speak with you. Impossible! Impossible! But I did. And now, every Sunday when Inhale comes, we talk. And Inhale even corrected me too, Pequeño, say pequeño. And so it really does open doors, and it helps you to at least, I know enough Spanish and French to be able to ask for directions, ask order a meal at a restaurant, communicate information about myself, and just talk generally about the weather and enough to let people know what I want. And as I said, in the process, it has taught me a lot about the culture. Of course, Mr. Francis also taught me French, even if I had studied French in high school. I had not, Lucette is still trying to log on. She's having problems in Guadeloupe. And I really would like her on because she really has a wealth of information. And, but it doesn't look as if, oh. Lucette. Finally, you are here.
Never give up.
Thank you for joining. Yes. So right. So I was saying that you know so much, you've done so much, and it would be a disadvantage for us not to hear you. So while you are here, can you introduce yourself?
Okay, thank you. So I'm Lucette Moranyapa. I'm from Guadeloupe. I'm from Guadeloupe too. So I speak, my mother tongue is Creole, French Creole, and French, of course. And then I speak also, and I used to teach English and Spanish too.
What made you, why did you become interested in learning English or even Spanish?
Oh, I guess that's a natural, that's innate, I don't think I tried to do it. It just came to me. I just liked it. I used to, for example, when I was in college, so I was 14 years old, I used to just have the radio on, and I used to listen to the radio from Montreal, BBC, and then also from Venezuela, and I like to do that. For me, that was natural. So I always like it. I don't know why. That's natural.
And then you eventually, they said that one of the fastest ways in which you can learn a language is to immerse yourself in the culture. Actually travel to the country if you can, spend some time in the culture, and that speeds up your learning of a foreign language. What can you say about that?
I guess when you're in a foreign country speaking the language with the people, and you are in real situation that you are not learning, you are in real situation, you are more motivated. So, but what I say is, I feel better when I was in England. That was my first trip was in Spain before, and 2 months after that, I spent 9 months in England. And I really feel that it was a good thing for me to have learned before, to have enough knowledge of the language. And I had to face my problem when I was in England was that I used to have good level in English, written and things. And when actually I was in England with people, I felt a bit frustrated because sometimes I couldn't understand everything. But I think it's because I had a good level, a written level in English, I was able to do it. So I wonder how people do when they have nothing before going to a country, like a little baby, you don't know nothing, and you just have to be in the ocean speaking.
Right, and all of it has to do with motive and motivation. So you are in a country where the predominant language is where is what you would like to learn, then you will throw yourself into the culture and into the life, and eventually you will learn. And but Miranda made a valid point that, and I think Lucette, you and I spoke about that earlier today, that in learning a language, the focus has to be on communicating, not trying to, because you can learn a language to pass an exam. Students learn all the time French, Spanish for the CXC or CSEC, and they get through. And that doesn't mean they can speak the language at all.
No.
So the focus must be on communicating and not necessarily trying to get everything correct in your mind, because eventually over time it will settle in.
Yeah, because if you in the learning dynamic, you will just focus on the assessment, how the person who listens to you, what the person thinks of what you are saying, you know, your level and thing. But if you are you target the real purpose of the communication, it will be okay. But if you just focus on what the person is thinking of the way you are talking, you will be frustrated. You won't be able to do it.
And what would you say, and I want you and Jeanette to address this. People say, I remember about 15 years ago, I heard somebody say that, and the person was not much older than I was, and said that she wanted to learn Spanish, but her brain is too old. She's too old for that.
Oh.
Because if she was younger, she was in her 20s, should have learned Spanish. What would you say about that? What would you say to her if she were to have said that to you?
Lucette, you want to start?
Oh, go ahead. I haven't.
It's a misconception, Ivenia, that you have to learn a language in your youth year. That is a wall that we put ourselves. There's no limit to what a human brain can do. We are the ones who limit ourselves. Once, as you said, once there is a motive and the motivation, there's nothing stopping you. It's something that we are doing to ourselves, nobody else. There's nothing that can stop us. Age has nothing to do with learning a language or whatever you want to do in life.
Anyway, you know that when you communicate, it's not always only talking, because you can show things, you can show objects, you can say, oh yes, I want that, so look at it, and so you will insist, like I insisted to be with you too. If you're really motivated in something, you will find other ways that we are creative.
Right.
Zoom was determined to keep you out of our meeting, and you said no. But it is true, what she's saying is true. I remember my same Angel friend from Dominican Republic who comes to our church. I remember once Angel came to the office to drop something off, and we were chatting. And for some reason, Angel, I said something about the pen, and he says, boligrafo. And he picked up the newspaper and he says, El Periodico. And I've never forgotten El Periodico. And he was starting to point at things in the office and call the names in Spanish. And that is how I remember certain things, pared, and so I learned a lot of things from people who I went once to get some air in the tire, in the Spanish tire shop. And I said, quiero aire para mi carro. The man said, aire. Oh Lord, yo hablo con personas en la calle, en la
oficina.
Todos lugares.
Yep.
And that strategy is it's one that we always promote anyhow. I said to students, I said, listen, go home, look at the stuff in your fridge, label it in French or in Spanish, as the case may be. I have on occasion taken them to the supermarket. You can't do that too often with children, but you know, if you have a nice little group, you can do that. And we go into the supermarket and we look at the labels on the different food items. And you see, because there are so many products inside our little supermarkets that that have you know, bilingual labels. We don't realize it. And even if it's not, if let's say we're studying food, you know, we go inside the shop and say, voici des sardines. Oh, and we have a lovely a French bakery here in Anguilla. So we go there and say, okay, je voudrais des croissants, des beignets, du pain, un sandwich au thon. And that all these we would have already seen in class, or they see them and so they see similarities. They see something that they you know, they can relate
Triggers
to.
their memory.
Right. And so they get it. And whereas you know, they would have a problem getting verb conjugation, they're not going to have a problem getting the food. Whereas they would have a problem getting a sport that they're not familiar with. The one that they're familiar with, they would get it. I've had to, you know, sometimes you have to be very, very innovative, as teachers and learners. And there was this time, I did it several times. I took the class outside on the field. Teacher, we couldn't go out on the field? Okay, yes. What are we going to do? We're going to play football. And what did we do? We played football, but all the communication on the field had to be in French. Tire, passe, à moi, à moi. And the more they did that, the more marks they give them. And guess what? They come off the field, they see me on the street, and they passe le ballon. Non, tire, arrêtez. And so they got that because that was their sport. They got that because they had fun doing it. It's not always possible to give them that kind of fun. But if once they have something to relate to, it is going to stick. And so when Lucette was in England and she saw some of what she had learned in Guadeloupe, it was easier for it to stick. When you know, as we travel, when what's her name again? Miranda. When Miranda was in France, right? And so she was able to use what she had learned. Why? Because
like who's on the toilet?
Exactly, because you're hungry now for this situation to use what you had learned. And so if we have a desire, like you were saying, if we have a design, a motive, if we have that internal inspiration to learn the language, like you said, Ivina, that you wanted to learn, you know, to be able to communicate in Spanish in 6 months, and you got there, not perfectly, but nobody was asking for perfection. Sorry?
One of my main motivations was that a lot of Spanish people came before the court who didn't have representation, and at the first hearing, usually we don't have a translator because we do not know who was going to be arrested, who's going to be brought before the court, and sometimes it was really was a hopeless situation not to be able to say to them, oh, well, your matter is adjourned to Monday, the 22nd of January. And or even a thing like, do you have a lawyer? Do you intend to get a lawyer? Things like that. So that was for me, that pushed me a lot because, so it got to the stage where I was able to ask them, ¿tienes un abogado? You know, regresa las 25 de enero, whatever they turn. So it was easier to tell them, to speak to them in Spanish.
Which ultimately means that when you learn another language, it could serve to help you, but it can serve to help others through you. If you're in a different place, you never know when knowing another language is going to come in handy.
Aye, it does. It
All
does.
right.
It does. I mean, I think each one of us here can attest to that. It really, really does.
Mhm.
And and
Excuse me, Albania. At the beginning, I said that for me, in a specific time, what the most important was to be communicated. But now I understand that it's important for me to continue improving and my preparation to achieve maybe not perfection, but to be close to the perfection. Because you know how interested I am to teach others, and to teach, you have to learn audio.
That's right.
So it's something that for me is very, very important. So any occasion, any time that I can get advanced, I have take it to improve and to be well uh, prepared to teach others.
Exactly. Wonderfully said.
I know, for example, some people, and before Lucette, before you came on, we were talking about the different tools that we use to help us in learning the languages. Well, I only know a little bit of Spanish, a teeny bit of French. Everybody else, all of you would know two full languages. My two full languages they're English and and Creole. So I don't want to hold myself out as no big Spanish or French speaker. Listening to music in the language you want to learn. But
Mhm.
I know that you follow the Catholic Mass in English and I think in Spanish as well.
Yeah. This is because I think it's better to. That's what I say to my students. It's better to watch videos, to listen to music, things like this, the things that you are really interested in. For example, for music, you will, or for a song, you will repeat it. You will repeat it. We will have the
Mhm.
correct pronunciation. That's the best way to have a good pronunciation. It's with song. I have a friend who has a good level in English, and he said that he used to sing Bob Marley's songs, and that was good English at that time. And then
Bob Marley.
you repeat, you repeat, you repeat, and with the right pronunciation. And for example, the films, I say to everybody, please, here we have films, but there is interpreters, in French. So you don't, I say, no, it's better for you to know what's the voice of Denzel Washington, what's the voice of,
Yes.
any other actor. And so you will be used to it. And so if you're interested in what they are really saying, you will learn better. You
Mhm.
know, that's that's really more inspiring because these people are real. It's real songs, real films, and then that's better, the best.
That is true. And then there are certain apps a person can use. And I'll put some of the apps down in the description of our YouTube so that YouTube on the channel so people can access the information and it's free. Like Duolingo. Duolingo is a very, very important language learning app. It allows you to learn multiple languages at one time if you can navigate them. But if you focus on one, it's enough. If you have a basic knowledge of the language, Duolingo can push you forward very rapidly. We
Mm.
have Babel. Babel is and I think you have to pay for
Okay.
Babel. But there are lots of other apps out there. And one of the things I think that's important to do, and Mr. Francis taught that to us when we were doing French with him. You have to you have to translate your keyboard, turn the keyboard into the language that you want to learn.
Mhm.
All
Mhm.
the accents, however, they are there.
Mhm.
Another problem with
We recommend
keyboard.
you turn your entire screen into the language that you want to learn. For me, I used to read articles in French and Spanish, and my vocabulary was growing rapidly. But after a while, other things came in the way, and I kind of cool a bit. But I'm picking that up again because I realize that it really, if you don't really stick with it, the little that you've learned, you can forget it.
Mhm.
You
Exactly.
know, what is good with that, it's because when we, for example, the news, you have the same information, you know, in several maybe different ways, but the same information. That's what it can be very easy for a person to understand. When I remember, yes, when I started at high school, I subscribed not to Catholic Mass, but to there was a neighbor. She was a witness of Jehovah, something like this. Yes, witness of Jehovah, and so they have, you know, leaflets. They've got their leaflets in 3 languages: French, English, Spanish. So I say, well, it was just, you know, not a lot of money, very little money for that. So I say, okay, why not? So I could have the same information, you know, that we didn't have internet at that time. So I could have the same information, you know, the same leaflet in French, English, and Spanish, and I could compare things.
Yes, and that is important because even when you go to the hospital here, you will find certain brochures that they are distributing. They'll have it in Spanish and English because they are aware that there is a Spanish community among us. And so a lot of what the government would do, they would do it in the dual languages, Spanish and French, English, because they're aware that there are Spanish speakers here. So all of that too helps to encourage that kind of integration and communication.
Yeah,
That's
very
true.
useful, really.
Anything else anybody would want to say to people who feel afraid?
One of the method I used for my students too is always the free, the oral practice with speeches. So always, I mean, I had 3 levels. First level was, first, you have to be able to introduce yourself. So I gave them time so that they could be prepared to present yourself, so that they would find a lot of things about how to present themselves. So how to present your country. I would say when you speak with a foreign person, if the person wants to know you, they will always ask you these questions. Who are you? Introduce yourself. They will want to know about your country. So when it's something that you are interested in, you will find a way to say it. So present yourself, present your country, present the Caribbean. So sometimes present the other islands, the Caribbean. And then after that, it will be, second level will be present an issue, something that you find in the newspaper that you are interested to, you know, to tell to the others. Present this article to other people so that they would speak, and then others will debate with them. So that was it. So several levels. And then after that, after presenting, the debate, you see, discussion with the others. So this is interaction. So you have presented something, and then after that, there is interaction. So you need, you know, to have like spontaneous.
Even on the language apps,
And there's nothing stopping you. There's absolutely nothing stopping you. Not just that learning another language is going to open doors for you, but it's also going to help you understand other people's culture, the way other people act. And there's nothing, again, nothing stopping you. No age, no nothing. Get it going. Find out how it's easier to learn, whether it's by listening to music, whether it's by reading different things in different languages, listening to the news. There must be something that's going to be helping you. Just find out what it is. Get someone who can help you with it, whether it's in a class or someone who's also interested in the same language. But the only person stopping you is yourself.
Well said. Well said, lovely. And one of the things that I realized also about learning a foreign language is it helps you to know yourself. It shows you, it reveals so much about yourself, your individual self, and your own culture, your own language. because most of what I learned from about English, I learned through French and Spanish. Because especially when it comes to grammar, there's so many things that we don't teach about our own language.
True.
We just take it for granted.
Yeah.
But when in my exploration of French, and I love grammar, so I would always, promote grammar. In my exploration of French and Spanish especially, I realized that the English grammar, let me put it this way, that I learned the English grammar through learning French and Spanish grammar. And that helped me a whole lot. And so I was able to express myself much better than before in English, through my knowledge of the foreign languages. And I couldn't do without that help. I really couldn't. And having that confidence, one of my strategies also was, as Lucette mentioned, because it bears repeating, that what I determined, I think when I was about third or fourth form, which would be 15, 16 years old, I said, whatever I know in English, I would like to be able to express it in French. Whatever I know in French, I want to be able to express it in Spanish. And so I was trying to build, let's say, my house of languages, three languages at a time. And I made a very, very bold effort to do that. I spent a lot of time. I took my dictionary that somebody had given me, and I tried to learn one new word every day. And I was amazed. Just one.
Yes.
I didn't go looking for anything special. I just opened it, and it's like, what's the word? And whatever it was, I took it. I had some weird words, but they came in handy afterwards. They came in very handy. So there's nothing stopping us. One thing I would like to mention, though, is that we have to be careful when we start using the apps. We have to be careful when we start using Google, online translations, because they don't take into account the grammar of the language. Many of them, they give us some fixed expressions, expression figée, that we hold on to, but we can't, because we are looking for a quick fix. We have not gone into the grammar. We cannot transpose. So when I say j'ai faim means I'm hungry. So you're hungry, just say j'ai faim. But how do I say she is hungry? How do I say my dog is hungry? And so it becomes a problem because we have not explored the grammar in order to help us master the language. And so I would like to make a case for grammar. Not that at the beginning we would go deep into grammar, but while we are trying to learn the language, let us try to learn what makes up the language, so that our mastery of the language is not something superficial just to pass an exam, as we do for our exams, but something that will really propel us into much, much deeper communication and revelation of ourselves as avid users of the language.
I salute Seth kind of raising hands, because I think we both agreed when Mr. Francis said that we learned a word every day. We tried to just pick up a word and learn it every day. So she and I actually kind of raised our hands, because it's something that helps a whole lot. Just pick up a word and learn it. And even in your own language, it's something that you can do, whether it's a foreign language or your own language. It helps to expand your vocabulary and to express yourself.
Yes, it does. You said
dictionary is my tool. I still, when I was went to Spain, and so for the training for teaching Spanish as a second language, and then I discovered, I found out that there was a word reference dictionary online. And it is my useful tool. With this word reference, for example, you have all kind of languages dictionary for all these bilingual and things. So every time when I want to be sure that I'm precise in what I say, I'm correct, so I will always use my dictionary. I still do that.
Yes, yes. And what I love
And
about word reference is that it's a real dictionary. It's not just a translator. It's a real dictionary, and it gives you, stuff in context. It gives you 10,
Mhm,
12, 15
mhm.
different contexts,
Yes.
and that is one of the things that just in case we have youngsters watching this, that's one of the things that youngsters need to learn to do. We need to learn to put things in context. Just the other day, just sometime this week, a student was asking me, "Well, Mr. Francis, how do you say to get?" I said, "To get what? To get sick? To get old? To get money? Right? To get mad? To get hungry? What do you mean?" Say, "Isn't there a French word?" I said, "No, there's no French word. So to get. What does it mean to get? What are you?" And the child couldn't tell me what he wanted to say. So I said, when you figure out what you're trying to say, well, we can find the French exactly for it. But for now, just tell yourself there is no English word called get, and there's no French word for
Valid.
get. So when that is why I will always promote the dictionary. And well, one of the things, to be honest, is that a lot of folks don't know how to use a dictionary. We have to admit that. And when we have needs, and we have learned to use the dictionary really, really helps us to determine and to work on what we are really trying to say. If we would take the time, dictionary work takes time.
Mhm.
And that is what helps us to learn. The translator does not help us. And so I would I would stay here and beat the translator down, because the translator does not help. But the dictionary helps, because the dictionary helps us to learn.
Right. So we're wrapping down. So what would you say? Any parting words for our listeners, those who may not have thought about learning a language before, but now realize, oh, wow, it's something I may, want to try out to see if I can advance in it.
Well, getting into a foreign language, learning a foreign language, and you can't just do it for the sake of doing it. In that, I mean, if you just want to learn another language, um, if you're going to invest yourself in it, yes, but you can't just speak about it and get it done. It takes time. And so have a motive, have an inspiration, whether it is for your own self-upliftment, upgrading yourself, or for your job, for pleasure, but have a motivation, and that would make it much, much easier. That, I mean, that really, 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 puts the icing on the cake. And you will see how very, very easy it becomes to learn. Whether you are 95, I was in university in Martinique, and I saw this lady enrolled at the age of 60. She wanted to learn. So I didn't have anything else to do. I just wanted to come and learn. So she came and she started to do a degree program in French. And it was easy for her. Okay, so being 60, being 75, it doesn't stop us. One of my main motivation for teaching, to be honest with you, apart from learning, loving to help, is that I learn a lot. As a teacher, I have learned so much. I can't afford to stop teaching. If I stop teaching, I'm afraid I may stop learning. Right, Gina?
Maybe.
But we learn a lot.
Possible. Yes. Yeah, and you may need an angel, like Ivinia had an angel. Maybe you had an angel as your encouragement, someone who's speaking to you in another language. But you must have a reason. You must have a inspiration,
Yes.
a wanting, not just because if you don't, it's not going to make sense, and not going to be there for long. You're going to give up easily.
Easily. And you're not going to know which way to go, because you don't know particularly what you want to learn.
Mm-hmm.
There is
but
something I want to encourage, I think, to encourage people to speak languages. I've read that it's good for your brain,
Yes, it
because
is.
you when you learn a lot of languages, it's very good for your brain. I don't know how it is. It's a muscle. That's the muscle of the brain. I don't know what it is. But I think
The
it's good.
capacity of your brain, we only limit ourselves, Lucette. Our brain has a capacity that we don't use. So I think by learning different languages, you're trying to use that other part that you don't use normally.
I think
That's
so.
true.
So
That's
you
what
have
they
to
say.
learn languages.
Yes, people who learn multiple languages, your brain sort of wires itself differently, and you are able to stave off certain mental illnesses like or
Alzheimer.
brain diseases like Alzheimer's and all of
Mhm.
those dementia and these diseases. You are able to keep them at bay because your mind is so full of
Mhm.
useful information,
Information.
not just dormant and idle. So that's one
Mhm.
of the things they said that's valuable about learning a foreign language. It keeps you active.
Yeah,
Whenever you have to speak in that language, you switch to the language.
Yes.
exactly.
And some people wire, they cross, they use, if you speak Spanish and French, some people tend to cross, use words. Yes, Miranda?
Yes, finally, I would like to say that learning a language is something that never stops. Because every day we have to be improving, encouraging, investigating, and trying to learn more, and more. And I tell to all my students that never stop and try to put a barrier to the possibilities to learn language. You know why? Because I tell them, if you want, you can. If you can, you will get it.
All right.
Right? So it's
Vouloir.
something that I tell them, don't, no matter what age you are, if you want, you can.
Yes.
If you can get it.
Yes.
Nicely said. Remember, vouloir, c'est pouvoir.
Exact. C'est ça. C'est
Oui.
exactement ça.
So, thanks to all of you for taking the time out of your, I know everybody's busy, everybody's working very hard. So I don't know how to say thank you because I know it's a sacrifice. It's been a sacrifice. So, Lucette, merci et bonne nuit.
Merci. À vous aussi.
Merci
Et
beaucoup.
aux autres.
And Mr. Francis, yes, same thing. Bonne nuit. So,
Ciao.
Anna, à bientôt. So,
Bientôt.
A bientôt.
yes,
Au revoir.
Adios.
Au revoir.
Salut.
yes. Thank
Bye.
you very much.
Oui.
And
Thank you so much.
yes, I will. I'll put some tools below. So anybody who wants to contact or get into the apps or whatever will find some useful information.
All right.
Very
All
much.
right.
And
Merci, merci.
You said, enchanté.
Moi aussi, je suis ravie.
Ouais.
C'était très bien de vous entendre.
Enchanté. Ouais. On parlera après, OK?
D'accord.
Un autre jour.
Très bien.
Oui. On se contacte, ouais.
Et vous êtes à Anguilla, c'est ça?
Oui.
Ok.
Oui.
Il
On
habite,
s'amuse.
il habite ici.
On s'amuse ici, hein?
C'est bien.
Oui.
And we were hoping to have somebody from the Creole because today is Journée Creole in Dominica.
Ah oui, c'est vrai.
But I couldn't find someone in time. It was such short notice. And but I suppose at some other time we'll talk about the Creole. And it's a culture that's dying in some of our territories. We need to revive it. And in the French territories, it's alive because it's in tandem with the French.
Yeah.
But in our country, Dominica, it's dying out because you have the young people who say they cannot speak Creole, they don't understand it. And that is heart-wrenching because it's such a lovely language. If there's some things you can only say in Creole. If you want to have a certain impact, you just have to say it in your mother tongue. We have to talk about Creole as a language and where we're going with that as a people. We can't allow it to die. So, merci. Merci beaucoup. Je t'aime and gracias, gracias, gracias. Mis amigas.
Muchas
That's
gracias.
wonderful.
Okay, de nada.
De
Bye.
nada.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Hasta
Adiós.
luego.
Adiós.
Adiós.
Salud, a viento.